So welcome to our Mastering Mastercam session. In this session, we're going to be talking about powering mission success with next-gen updates. And we're joined today by a special guest. I'd like to introduce Jesse Trinque from Mastercam. So he's a senior applications engineer working directly with Mastercam. I'm your host, Colin Gilchrist, for this session of Mastering Mastercam, but we're letting Jesse guest host today, and so I'll be kind of running the chat and bubbling up your questions to the top for Jesse, but Jesse will be your primary presenter today. So without further ado, Jesse, if you want to give us a quick intro and jump into the presentation. We're so excited to have you.
So I'm Jesse Trinque. As Colin said, I'm an applications engineer here with Mastercam. Been in manufacturing since basically my freshman year of high school. Went to a technical school, started there. Went to University of Connecticut for engineering. And then after that, I worked for 3 years as a government civilian with the U.S. Navy. So I understand where a lot of you are coming from. I worked in that environment for years. And now been with Mastercam since 2013. So 13 years ago, just a couple of months ago, started in June, beginning of June. So just this month, actually, 13 years. So with that, Colin, I don't know if everybody knows you or you want to introduce yourself or you want me to just get going?
Sure, I'll just do a quick intro. Thanks, Jesse. My name's Colin Gilchrist. I'm the Digital Systems Product Manager for Phillips Federal. So I started here in the end of 2021, and about a couple of years ago, we took on Mastercam, becoming a Mastercam reseller, and since then have really graduated to handling a lot of the government and DoD business for and with Mastercam as their reseller. So my background, I've been a CNC machinist and programmer, started in the trade in 1995, kind of dating myself a little bit. And first version of Mastercam I used was version 6.13. And this would have been circa 1996, 1997 timeframe. So way before V9 and before the Mastercam X series, and then the Mastercam year numbered series starting with 2017. So been around for a little while, and that's me in a nutshell. I could talk a lot about my career, but I want to keep the focus on Mastercam and on Jesse. So thanks everyone for joining, and we're excited to have you.
All right, well, let's jump into the presentation. Just do a quick run through on today's agenda. We're going to start with so Colin talked about the years for Mastercam. We moved to that yearly release. But what does this R2 thing mean with Mastercam 2026? So I'm going to dive into that, talk about that for a minute. We're going to go through some multi-axis enhancements, GPU simulation, probing, Copilot. Those all have to do with new release items for Mastercam 2026 R2. And then we're going to move into Mastercam 2027, what's ahead. It's coming out next month, so we'll talk about what's ahead there. And finally, the next generation of Mastercam, Everpath technology. So we'll go into that. So the latest release for Mastercam, it is Mastercam 2026 R2. It was available for download starting in February of this year, and it is available only on my Mastercam. I got a caveat for this presentation. Colin, I know you guys help deliver that to some of our DoD customers because it's a little different in their environment. So
that's right. So, and I think as you go through and talk about Connect as well, that's where this goes in. So, you know, part of being on Mastercam maintenance and being a Connect customer with an active Connect subscription, one of the things that we do at Phillips is to help you get data when you need it. So there are some users, for example, who are on a PIT computer, platform IT, and they're isolated. They don't have that connection to the internet or permission to just download whatever they want. And so when it comes to registering on my Mastercam or getting access to files, sometimes due to operational constraints, and that's the government for you, right? I love the government, I'm not not trying to throw any stones here, but sometimes it's like what the commercial world can do easily is not as easy or accessible when you're in the government. And so if you run into those situations, that's what Phillips is here to do. Is here to help you figure out, well, how can we get it to you? Can we send you a Dropbox link? Do you need a DoD safe link? Right. So those are the things that we can help with at Phillips. Thanks, Jesse.
Yep. All right. So Mastercam 2026 R2. What is this R2 thing at the end of 2026 here? And really what that's about is effective with Mastercam 2026. We're going to transition to a 6-month semi-annual release schedule. So this is really about reflecting our commitment to delivering continuous value and trying to respond much more effectively to the evolving needs of modern manufacturing, right? So we're really trying to get some accelerated feature delivery, new capabilities, new enhancements, get them to your production environment in 6 months rather than 12, right? If we're on a 12-month release schedule, if a feature is developed in, say, August of this year, you don't get to see that until almost 11 and a half months later, right? So we're trying to up that timeline, stay more responsive so we can incorporate feedback from the field much more quickly and get our development priorities aligned with those real world requirements. Incremental adoption. So we're trying to get these more frequent focused releases, trying to enable smoother transitions, right? Not as big of a chunk of a bigger feature set that you've got to adapt to. So the scope of change be slightly smaller with every single update. And then finally, technology alignment, right? With the rapid advancement of AI and automation and, digital manufacturing is the development rate is getting crazy, right? So that demands a release cadence to keep up with all these crazy enhancements that are happening to keep pace with the industry. So that's really what R2 is about. Just think of it as, it's almost like our 2026.5, right? It's the midpoint between 2026 and 2027, and it is a major release. It's not just an update. These updates, and they are available at no additional cost as long as you are a maintained customer on Mastercam Connect. I don't know if you wanted to touch on that briefly, Colin, again.
Yeah, so Mastercam Connect being on maintenance gives you access to a whole lot of things in the Mastercam ecosystem. So I think a big one is training. Using the Mastercam University, for example, is a great way to improve your Mastercam skills, to get more knowledge about the product, get access to the tech exchange. These options assume that you have internet access. So that, I think, is the challenge on the government side, is that in some cases you may have to, I've had customers who take their programming laptop and then they take that into a conference room in their facility, which has a separate computer, and they use that to get access to the on-demand training. So, using dual computers, one, with internet access, one with your software, that can be a good option. But yeah, being on the Connect, and not only just having the Connect for your products, and when I say products, I'm talking Mastercam Mill 3D, lathe, multi-axis, but also on your post processors. There's a huge benefit to that because, and you could probably talk a little bit more about this just as an aside, Jesse, because obviously working for Mastercam, you've got the latest. One of the things we've been doing for customers is working with them to convert older post processors that were done by third parties to Mastercam post processors. So I'm doing little air quotes here, trying to get it in the view. But basically what's going on is we've had a situation or an ecosystem where customers could buy posts from their resellers. They could also buy them from third parties. And so in-house solutions and postability are the two biggest ones. Mastercam actually purchased postability and in-house solutions. They're now part of the Mastercam ecosystem. And so what we do with the post-processor conversion is we put together an order that has the post processor and the post processor maintenance, but then we zero out the cost of the post processor. And what we're essentially doing is taking your existing post, putting it on post maintenance, and then we go back to Mastercam, and Mastercam looks at your post, the code that is in your post, and is it modern enough that they can just update it and send your post back updated and now it's on maintenance? Or is the code in there old enough that it makes sense to convert you to a newer version of that post, take your customization and port it over to that newer version of the post, but basically rebuild your post using the best architecture, the newest architecture, but still including the customization that was done for you. And so that's what a lot of our customers are doing as far as, getting used to the new ecosystem. If you put your posts on post maintenance, the cost is really low, by the way. I think it's about 1.5%. It's like 1.44% is the cost of the post maintenance. So it's a pretty low dollar figure to now have a fully supported post, even if you bought it a long time ago, right? If you bought a post in 2017, you could put it on post maintenance, and now it's just maintained going forward. So things aren't working, you have one source to call, and nobody can blame each other, right? Sometimes, and I'm not throwing anybody under the bus here, but just saying the reality of the situation, you have a post developer, you have a reseller, you have a machine tool dealer, and sometimes they're like, well, this isn't our responsibility, it's over on these guys, and that's kind of going away. Now with Phillips, it's like we're responsible to make this work once you get it in the ecosystem. And so that's what we want to offer for our customers, is to make sure that you're well supported, the machines are running, the software is running, you guys are trained up, you know how to use everything, and that's part of the benefit of being a Mastercam Connect customer and being on maintenance, is access to that ecosystem, updated posts, on-demand training, access to the tech exchange, and then access to the software updates and features as new versions come out. And as you just heard from Jesse, under a new kind of twice yearly release schedule. So more frequent updates to the major release cycles. Instead of being a once a year, it's now twice a year. And I think as typically happens, new release comes out and then an update comes out because there are some issues that get figured out. And this happens with all new software, right? Software gets released, we find some issues, fix the issues. And Mastercam especially has been really great at doing that quickly, which I really appreciate. And I think back to you. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, let's jump into some of the new features for Mastercam 2026 R2. So some of the new R2 features: multi-axis simulation and probe updates, some optimization options. A big one for Mastercam 2026 R2 and moving forward is the GPU processing. Bloom Digilogger setter support. So for Mastercam probing, we now support the Bloom Digilog tool setters. If you've got one of those on your machines, this is a big deal. Levels and planes managers. So as you probably know, if you're using 2026, you've got a brand new levels, brand new planes manager. Kind of like what Colin was saying. Once that stuff gets out in the field, we start to understand how customers feel about it. We do a lot of research going in with our usability studies, but if we've missed something or we need to regroup or adjust, that's something that was done for 2026 R2. So some changes made to the levels and planes managers. We do have a webinar series that we rolled out at the same release schedule. I'm going to plug that at the end. I know this is not totally related to that. This is something we're doing with Phillips. But if you enjoyed this content, you might enjoy our webinar series as well. So I'll give you some dates on those at the end of this presentation. And then finally, Mastercam Copilot. So the first official production release, and it's got a lot of new features with R2. So we'll keep going on here. So some of the things that are new for R2 and multi-axis, automatic tilting with bullnose end mills. You can now utilize the automatic tilting collision control strategy. That was something that was only available with ball nose spherical tools, lollipop, something like that. Now you can utilize that with bowl end mills. It's going to let you have less stick out on those tools, and it's going to just greater simplify getting good, smooth 5-axis tilting motion out of those bull nose end mills. 4-axis swarf. So we've always had 4-axis swarf. Swarf is one of those tool paths. When it works great, it works great. And when it doesn't, it's kind of like, what's going on here, right? So a lot of those cases, especially in 4-axis, were taken into consideration, and the team was able to enhance 4-axis swarf to get much better results, achieve optimal geometric accuracy, and just better results overall when you're in 4-axis mode with swarf. A lot of work went into the automatic linking clearance in multi-axis, so allowing optimized links for cylindrical and spherical surfaces. Just going to help you reduce machining time, get those links a little more dialed in across the part if you're using multi-axis. And this really applies specifically when you've got the clearance type set to automatic, or when the user selects a cylinder sphere clearance type with the position and radius option set to automatic. So it's just going to kind of work better. If you don't, if you're using it for the first time, you're going to say, oh, that just works. But there was cases where it didn't before. A lot of enhancements there to get it working better. And then optimized level. If you use the tool, level-based ordering, if you use triangular mesh, a lot of the unified tool paths had this level-based ordering that were in there. Triangular mesh really didn't do a great job with it. So a lot of that functionality was brought into triangular mesh, which has some unique characteristics for programming in 5-axis. So it allows you to move to the next level of the region it's in before going back to other regions, instead of just doing that depth by depth, region by region. Okay, let's talk about GPU simulation. This is a big one when we're talking about ModuleWorks Verify. So the Verify simulator inside of Mastercam, it's now working in some cases up to 10 times quicker than the standard CPU-based simulation that we had in the past. And this is really a direct justification for that biannual release, right? This project was done end of last year. It would have sat on the shelf for 6 months until 2027 was released in July. Instead, it gets rolled out, 6 months earlier. So that's really positive there. And, as with anything here, this was the initial release of the GPU simulation, and that is going to keep getting better, as it will with Mastercam 2027 released in a month here. But this really has a huge impact on your daily workflow, just from sitting around waiting on verification to show you, what that part's going to look like. For this one, it was 1 hour and 28 minutes to run with a GPU simulation off, to basically cut this part complete in simulation with GPU on 22 minutes. So that's saving 1 hour of your day just waiting on Mastercam to crunch code in the background. So how does this work? It's really just utilizing the GPU, right? The graphics processing unit. It uses parallel processing power to accelerate really complex data-intensive computations. They're simplistic, right? They're simplistic. There's just a ton of them. When we talk about doing simulation and removing these little pieces of material, these little triangles, that's intensive. It's simple calculations, but it's very intensive. And by passing that off to the GPU, we can do that a lot faster. And the simulating material removal, it really involves millions of toolpath points, and it requires considerable computing power. So this method applies the same operation to these many pieces. So instead of doing one, solving that, calculating the next one, solving that, moving to the next one, right? Those are all happening in parallel and then coming together as a solution at the end that's pushed out to your graphics view. So happening much faster. All right, that's what I've got for GPU. I'm going to jump into probing. I don't know if anybody uses Mastercam probing. It's a really awesome probing solution. Very, very simplistic, especially when we compare it to some of the older solutions that historically were in Mastercam, like Productivity Plus, where you had an independent macro suite that was really disconnected from your control or what was installed by default. You had to go through this whole integration to get it working. Now this is utilizing those macros that are installed on your control, posting right out with your standard Mastercam post processor, putting those macros right inside the code, kind of doing exactly what you would want it to do, right? It's just very simplistic in the way that it works, but very, very powerful in functionality. So really powerful software. Came out with 2026 as Mastercam probing. Prior to that, it was initially developed by third-party Simco probing. We purchased that IP, brought over a bunch of their developers, and really kind of honed in on making that a seamless Mastercam experience with 2026 and Mastercam probing. We got a lot of languages in there, 9 languages in support of Mastercam probing. I don't know if that really affects this group, Colin. I think it would be mostly English speaking. You're muted. Sorry. We'll just, I think well, circle back there in a second when you get yourself unmuted. But like I said, this programs the cycles within a familiar Mastercam interface, allows you to work right through the operations manager and nest those macros right in and allow you to do inspection and logic inside your Mastercam code. Looks
Yeah,
like you're on
I was going to say, sorry about that, Jesse.
Yep.
Yeah, so I put in the chat, there's a link to the Haas Renishaw Inspection Plus programming manual. And so that programming manual is the companion to the Haas machines for the Renishaw probe, helps give people a deeper understanding. So you had asked a question about localization. Actually, funny enough, we had somebody who said, hey, I'm in Alaska, but we have customers in Italy, in Germany, all over, Spain, just you name it. And so in some instances, there may be some customers who they have, local civilian employees that work at the facility. And so we do occasionally get Spanish requests. I think we've had one for German and one for Italian. So it's not something that comes up like every other day, but it is nice to know, in a global marketplace and where, the United States government for manufacturing has a presence that may rely on the local populace, that if you need to put Mastercam into a localized language, that we have those available. And as you mentioned, I think 9 of them. And so these are kind of the most common languages in addition to English around the world. So there's probably an option in there if you need to have a localized copy. So it's a great thing that Mastercam offers.
Yeah, I'll get in when we get to the Mastercam 2027, more exciting news on that too.
Sure.
All right, back to the presentation. So new for R2, we've got, as I said, Bloom Digilog setter support. You're not going to find Bloom probes very often on Haas machines. Typically, that's going to be the Renishaw probes, which we've fully supported since the beginning of 2026, but worked pretty closely with Bloom to get all their stuff working as well. All right. So let's shift gears here a little bit and talk about Mastercam Copilot. Mastercam Copilot's really got 3 functions. It's got the help. So that allows you to kind of talk to Copilot back and forth and get query the Mastercam help documentation and the knowledge base articles that exist, inside the Mastercam web area, and find solutions faster, like in context of your specific workflow there, right? There is the command function agent as well. So this allows you to navigate the UI to actually initiate tasks, to work with Copilot to maybe create a new machine group or change a feed and speed in an operation. So it gives you some guidance through programming processes and has some intelligent assistance there. Then finally, contextual feedback. So you'll get relevant suggestions based on your current function and position in the workflow. So Copilot will kind of follow along and give you feedback in that current workflow. We did release this out to an early adopter program September of last year. Went out to like 1,000 customers, gathered some feedback, made some modifications to Copilot, and with R2, there's some new functionality there. You can edit feeds and speeds directly with Copilot. Something like saying, "Hey, Copilot, can you change operation 3 to 4,800 RPM and 40 inches a minute?" And Copilot's actually capable of doing that. Machine group and operation creation. So you can say, "Hey, Copilot, drop in my Haas 3-axis vertical mill and add 4 contour operations." There's also active listening, where if you've got that turned on, it will wait till you say, "Hey, Copilot." And I mean, that's a good one for office pranks. You can start messing with somebody else's computer, I guess, which probably isn't great. But and then video scanning and extraction. So you may want to have that on or off depending on what you're trying to do. And I know this is going to come up in the environment that a lot of you work in. There is currently, right now, Copilot requires an internet connection. But I did confirm with our product team that it is on the roadmap to create a offline mode. So you'll be able to like get all these materials and run off the server or something secure, where you're not requiring that internet connection. So as of right now, if you don't have that internet connection, Copilot's not going to do a lot for you. But that is coming, and that is on our roadmap and a goal. Okay, so go ahead.
Jesse, can I just interject one quick thing?
Yeah.
So I will say, for the online version of Copilot, the one organization that I know that may have access would be the Air Force. So starting in 2024, it started earlier than that, but in 2024, Mastercam gained ATO approval on AFNet. So on the Air Force network, Mastercam 2024 and version 2025 are approved on AFNet. Now, there's a lot of ifs there. If you're running your Mastercam programming computers on AFNet with licenses, and those programming computers also have internet access, then you do potentially have a path to running Copilot. But as Jesse mentioned, you need that internet access until they offer the offline version. We do have a question. Where is the Copilot accessed at in the screen? So Devin, the answer to that is you have a separate install for Copilot. So you have to get on to mymastercam.com and you have to download that separate install for Copilot. And then once you do, it'll actually be available in the Mastercam interface. But yeah, that's the secret there, is that there's a separate install to get that access. And currently, your programming computer not only do you have to download it and install it, but the programming computer that you're using has got to have internet access for it to work. So as long as those things are true, you can download, you can install it, and you can run it today until, and if you don't have that internet access, you'd have to wait until the offline version.
To add one more caveat to that whole thing is you must also be a maintained Connect customer as well to access Copilot. All right, so with that's kind of our 2026 R2 plug there. I'm going to move over to introducing Mastercam 2027, coming out July 1st. I figure we're close enough to release date where we can start talking about that. Just going to go over some high-level stuff there. I'm not going to dive into it too deeply here, but the first bullet point is the most exciting here, right? With Mastercam 2027 comes the first opportunity to play with the next generation of Mastercam. It's called Everpath technology. It will be in beta throughout this calendar year. So with Mastercam 2027 R2, that should be the first official release of Everpath technology. It will no longer be in beta. It will be the release version. But you still can access it if you are a maintained customer on Connect in its beta form. The machine definition workflow has really been optimized and The UI has really been upgraded. If you're, familiar with clicking into the machine def in Mastercam now, you're kind of used to seeing that older style panel dialogue, not panel, window dialogue, right? We're moving that into the panel, kind of modernizing it. Same thing with mill turn machine group setup. That's taken a similar approach there with Mastercam 2027. We've got a lot of new tool type definitions and import functionality as well. And then some multi-axis enhancements. Again, we never go through a release without enhancing multi-axis. So we've got swarf milling, again, upgraded this time with multi-cuts, a lot of unified enhancements, multi-axis pocketing. Again, these are all features that come from customer demand. So, if you see any issues with the tool paths, we need that feedback loop. We need to get that feedback in order for the developers to act on that. A lot of deburr enhancements. So a lot to do with user definition on the machining, like really getting in. Deburr was a very kind of point and click sort of tool path. Customers have demanded that they get more finite control there, and that's really what this release has done. You're able to spiralize down on closed contours to work in that deburr edge shape, the deburred edge. You can preserve the user selected order. So before, you would click a bunch of edges and it would the system would pick its best method, but you're like, no, I want to do this one first, then this one. You've got that control in 27. Backside chamfer support, that's been a big one that people have been asking for since deburr came out, and edge filtering as well. And then one of the big ones with 2027, we kind of talked on this before. This is more for an international audience, but it sounds like, as Colin said, it may affect this group as well, is language packs available on release. So moving forward with 2027 R2, the day that release comes out are the day those language packs are available. So if you're using a different language, you're not waiting 3-6 months to download that latest release, and you're not behind in technology just because you do not speak English, right? Or don't use English. All right. So I'm going to dive into EverPath, diverge away from the other enhancements with Mastercam 2027. So what is EverPath technology, right? EverPath is a brand new, right? Ground up, brand new way to program in Mastercam. It is designed for consistent, efficient performance. It's got a color-coded workflow. It's going to guide the users from setup to finished toolpath. You're getting real time. This is probably this will, it almost like gives me chills when I'm programming an EverPath. That like the real time feedback that you get and that built-in validation while I work through the toolpath. It almost gamifies it, right? Just makes it so much more fun and easier to build a toolpath. You can click between 3, 4, 5 axis functionality, same toolpath. They can do all 3 modes with that same toolpath. And this is really going to benefit new programmers. You're going to have a shorter learning curve, right? And if you're an experienced program, a lot less friction, fewer clicks, just going to be really fewer regenerations, less clicking out, generating something, finding the issue, going back in. There's a lot less of that with this technology. So this, like I said, it's the next generation motion kernel. It's designed for consistent, efficient performance. It's going to work across any surface, any topology. It's going to enable optimal motion planning, and it's going to set the foundation for all EverPath toolpaths. So when I say that, right now, EverPath, we're starting with what I'll say is the most complex, all the finishing, the 5-axis finishing, 3-axis finishing toolpaths for surface finishing. In the future, that's going to move into, roughing toolpaths and, specialized things like it could be like doing porting, head porting on engines or blade work, all that stuff. This is the base for it. We've built the system for it, and it's also built for the future, for cloud, for AI automation. And as a separate install, it also allows for modular deployment, right? So we can feed out, we make a change to EverPath to enhance it. Users are able to install that, upgrade that, and use it immediately without waiting for this 6-month release cycle. So even more accelerated delivery there. So when we talk about EverPath, we've kind of got three pillars here. We've got toolpath creation, toolpath editing, and the user assistance system. Toolpath creation, it's about making those little blue lines on your part, right? Making the actual toolpath. Toolpath editing, this allows you to, this is a whole new world, a whole new realm of possibilities. We can now go in there and delete out sections of toolpath, right? Change the tool axis control angle on one segment of toolpath. It's super powerful, and it's functionality that you can't build into the toolpath when you create it through setting a bunch of buttons and switches, right? It's a whole new level of creativity with toolpath creation. Then finally, the user assistance system. This is a side-by-side help panel. It's got a tab on the screen if you want to open it up, and it follows along with you as you program. There'll be links. There's embedded videos, animated GIFs, just a really situational assistant that's existing inside of Mastercam. And I'm going to go into a demonstration of this, but the whole premise behind building EverPath was reducing what we're calling T3, or time to toolpath, right? We're trying to take, you look at a part and you say, I want to make a finishing toolpath on this surface. We are trying to reduce, the whole purpose of this project was to reduce the time it takes from you to have that thought to get G-code, right? So streamline that entire process and minimize it as much as possible. So the way we do that, we've got constant recalculation. You've got this, the interface is really broken up, color coded, allows you to really kind of walk through there. We've got automatic settings in there that are kind of defaults that give you results. Like you can see in tool axis control, we've got an automatic setting. So it generates something that you can then, you get an idea of what you've got and where you need to go from there to get something. And then finally, you've got custom machine output presets too. So we're going to be releasing this with some presets for, you know, a lot of the mainstream machines out there. So if you've got a Haas VF2 with the next gen control on it, you can go in here and select that and get code that is that a high finish code or a rough finish code? No more going in there and messing around with those complex, difficult to understand arc filter settings and things of that nature. We'll have these presets in there that allow you to get good code right off the bat without messing with it. So we'll talk a little bit about toolpath creation. You know, these are all 3 and 5-axis enabled toolpaths. So you're learning one set of toolpaths to do any part, whether it be 3 to 5 axis. They are contact based, right? So all the tool patterns are not generated. Like if you look at a water line today, it is generated based off of levels of the part, not based off of where that tool contacts the part, right? So it's a really different way of generating a toolpath. And what you'll find is it's a lot of the issues you have in generating finishing toolpaths are because of this difference. And you're going to see just a lot cleaner cut pattern motion because of it. And then the great part about this is we're no longer subject to parametric based tools, right? This is tool shape agnostic. It doesn't matter if you want to, I don't know, take the crazy shape, chuck it up in your machine and revolve it. We had somebody demo this, they took the word Mastercam and revolved it as a tool shape. And this EverPath can compensate to any point on that revolve shape. So it doesn't have to be a ball end mill or a you know, a lollipop or anything like that. It can be any tool shape whatsoever, and it will compensate correctly. And then finally, toolpath editing. This is a brand new environment. Like if you look at this screen, this is like nothing you've ever seen before, right? This allows us to trim, to delete, to fillet toolpaths, to change tool axis, change feed rates, change leads, transitions by clicking and moving, actually massaging the toolpath once it's been generated. So really powerful, and it's all historic. It's all history based. So like I can go and change a step over and regen it. And if it's possible based off of what I did, if I didn't pick specific pieces of that code, if I use a shape to define what I want to do as I cross through that shape, like it'll recalculate those changes on that new code. So I'll get into this a bit when I show when I go through an actual live demo here. And the user assistance system, again, we talked about this help panel. It's really intended to lower that barrier to entry. The whole idea is to upskill, onboard, and train and further educate anybody and turn them into a power user. Copilot and UAS, the user assistance system, they're different. UAS is going to follow along live, like while it's happening. Copilot is something you invoke, right? You work with. So the UAS is really powerful. And let's see. So just some customer feedback. As part of my job, I get to travel around, talk to different customers, and I get to show them live in their setting EverPath. And so I took a trip down to Florida, was working with Tristan here. He's pictured, and allowed him to play with the toolpath, play with EverPath, get his thoughts on it. And he said, this interface is so much cleaner. It's not blocking the view of the part as I program. So that was kind of his initial thoughts on it. Another person that I showed this to, David Bridges, he was a CNC programmer for Cybridge Technology. They do some amazing mold work down in St. Petersburg, Florida. He just was like, at the end, he was just like, you are on the right path with this. This looks wonderful. I can't wait to get my hands on it. Interesting cost model with EverPath. I think this, went through a lot of different ways that we were going to try and go to market with this. And we arrived at one that I think is just awesome for everybody, right? If you have Connect, if you have Mastercam Connect, if you are on our maintenance program, you get EverPath, right? So think about that. If you've got a seat of 2D mill and you are on maintenance, you get EverPath, right? Basic mill package, you get EverPath. So now you've got all this functionality that we talked about at your disposal as long as you're on maintenance. So really powerful. There is no additional cost to utilize the EverPath technology. So you like what you saw, you want to get started. Again, Colin can help you out with this too if you don't have internet access or aren't able to get there. But this installs as a separate, so you'd have to download the beta. It only runs in Mastercam 2027 and forward, right? And it's a separate .exe that will install on top of Mastercam 2027. I just installed the latest today. It literally took like a minute and a half to download and install. And this is the link to go there to download it. It's very quick, very easy to download. And then we've got some assets available with the 2027 public beta, the subforum. We've got a bunch of how-to videos, how to use the toolpath creation, the UAS system, and the editing platform. And then we'll also have a what's new PDF specifically for EverPath. This is going to be a separate document from Mastercam. It's going to be EverPath, as I talked about, is going to be on a different release cadence. So this document will be a living document separate from the Mastercam What's New. We're really trying to show the enhancements that come with these What's New documents with EverPath in the context of where they are and how they work in the software. So less generic, I guess, is how I would put it, and more situational with the What's New features. And because this is a living document and a living product that's, that is the next generation, it is a work in progress. We are going to be very transparent and list all the known issues, ask for feedback and solutions in this What's New document. And EverPath is going to be a little different. It's going to be iterated on much more quickly. And as I said, it's a work in progress and it's a little more flexible. So you're going to see some non-functional items listed in this What's New document. And that's going to be especially true through the end of the year, that we're giving the development team, a lot of liberties before this becomes a release product. So they get to really experiment there and make some dramatic improvements. So I think the best thing to do at this point is to show you what EverPath is. And I'm going to go very quickly and just give you a feel for what it looks like in the software. So once I download it, you'll see I've got my 2D, 3D, and multi-axis ribbons here. I've also got a finishing. So this is EverPath finishing. This is the toolpath interface here, right? If I start at the top, I can define my total tolerance right at the top, put a comment in here, go down to my tooling page. You'll see this red boundary, right? It gives me some very clear, if I want to go to the shoulder clearance and add 30 thousandths, you can see that start to jump up there. Let's go 0.1 so we really get this to balloon out, right? So I'm getting this is how EverPath is, right? I'm in the toolpath window, but I am directly integrating with and playing with the graphics view and getting direct feedback on what's happening here. Work coordinate system tool plane, we've moved it up in the workflow instead of the last thing. Now it's one of the first things you work with. If I pick the machining boundary I want, and watch when I hit end selection here, right? Immediately gives me something. Immediately gives me something that I can play with or mess with here. If I wanted to add avoidance geometry, I could do so here. Come down to my cut pattern and I say, well, I don't want 200,000 step over. I want to go 30. Immediately regenerates, right? And this is all using modern architected software. So the regeneration times are fractions of what we're used to in Mastercam today. Same thing with tool axis control. I can set it to automatic. I can use manual. I could say, oh, I want to go relative to a point. I want to go from this point, right? Immediately rebuilds it, gives me some feedback there. Even something like the linking. If I want to do manual linking and I want to go user define, I mean, I'm rolling my mouse wheel and I can kind of instantly get a feel for what height that retract plane is going to be at, right? All generating on the fly. We talked about, those defaults that are going to come in here, these presets. That's not quite done yet, but that's going to be pretty exciting. So I check out and I've got my toolpath ready to go. And I did all my iterations inside of that toolpath window, right? I'm not coming out, regenerating, going back in, making adjustments, regenerating. It's all happening live inside that panel with the screen active. Go to my toolpath editor. Now I can launch my editor. I could come in here and say, oh, I really want to get rid of all of the, just as an example. So I can select all that toolpath and delete it, right? So I've just deleted all those points. It's pretty powerful. Come out, okay. Now I'm in this, I've got this toolpath done here. I could go in and extend these. I could change feed rates in a specific zone. Like if I know I've got a weld repair in that area, I need to slow down. Well, I could just select all that toolpath and drop the feed rates by 50% to come across that heat affected zone. So really powerful there. And if I come into the parameters here, actually I want to show you the source operation. So I can go back to the source operation. Here's the user assistance panel. So as I move through the software, this is following me along as well. I got links with videos showing me how to do things that are where I'm at in the software. So, I mean, I could sit in here and do an entire webinar for 2 hours on just this. So I'm just trying to give you a very brief, quick example of what that is.
Hey, Jesse, we've got a couple of questions that came in through the chat. So the first is related to EverPath, I believe. The question is from Charlie. I'm using a different CPU, Intel Xenon. Will there be a time difference for rendering in the toolpaths? And I think what they're noticing is the speed with which you are making edits in
Yeah,
EverPath, and you see the resulting change. Is that GPU based? Is it CPU
it
based?
is. It is GPU based. It is, yeah, it's using the latest and greatest GPU power. I mean, my laptop at this point is 4 or 5 years old,
Sure,
but at that time it was a state of the art. It was a pretty good system
sure.
5 years ago.
So I
So
think,
it,
yeah, I
it does
think
work well, but this is going to function better, like regardless of the system you're using from standard
right,
Mastercam,
because it's
right?
not using standard CPU, it's using
Yep.
GPU. And
Yep.
so what you're really seeing there, Charlie, is the massive parallelization that you can get on a GPU versus a CPU.
Yep.
So I think it's a different question, because previously, up until now, throughout Mastercam's history, there have been a lot of paths which didn't take advantage. First we got threads, right? Before, everything was single threaded, right? If you're in Mastercam X or V9 or whatever, everything's sequential. You process one path, then the next, then the next, then the next, and that's it. And it's all going through your CPU. Then we got parallel threads that we could do for some of the new paths, but not the old. This is a new toolpath technology, not CPU based, GPU based. So when you say, hey, I'm using a different CPU, this is a different question. This now means if you don't have an onboard if you're only using onboard graphics and it's CPU based, it's going to be really slow, because that's not
Well,
taking.
it'll be like it was before, right?
Right. Exactly. You're not really going to see the advantage of EverPath unless you have at least a decent graphics card, with a good amount of RAM, because that's what it's really taking advantage of, is the GPU based.
Yeah.
So to take advantage of this, it's probably time to look at upgrading your computer if you want that additional performance, right? You can obviously still use what you've got. You're still going to see a performance boost. It's using a different technology. You're not going to see as much of a performance boost as if you had not only a new computer, but with a modern day graphics card. And even with your older computer with the Intel Xenon, there may be an upgrade option for you where, I've seen some really great improvements in Mastercam just when you have a not great computer and you get a gaming card, right? You get a better graphics card is still a better graphics card, even if it's not, the ultimate state of the art. It may offer a 10x increase over what you currently got for not that much more money. When I'm speccing a computer, and Jesse, I don't know if you're the same. Like, if I'm going out for a new computer today, I want the mid-range great graphics card that's out today. I don't want to pay the premium for the highest model, because in a couple of years, they're going to start. I like to look at the cost performance curve and pick something that's a better cost for moderate performance versus a really high cost for high performance. And then I think we got a final question in here from Robert Ward. Can you control the scallop in areas? Is the EverPath, does it give you any kind of scallop based calculation?
It does, yeah. So there is a here, I'll pull this back up here. Stand by 1 second.
Sir.
So there is a constant, let's go to here. There's a constant step over that will be scallop based. They are looking at, like, especially when we get to these complex tools, like a circle segment tool. If you're familiar with that, where you've got different radii on that same tool, where they could actually do that calculation based off of where your contact point is on the tool, and give you exactly what you're talking about over various radiuses on that tool. That will be very powerful, but that was not possible, with the old architecture. So this system allows that stuff. That's not there yet, but it's a possibility now, which was something that wasn't a possibility before.
That's really exciting. When I saw you do the scroll wheel and it's changing the height, I'm like, that's nice, man. That's pretty slick. You try doing that, making changes that fast with the current, you just can't. you have to wait each time. And even if it takes a couple of seconds to just, the massive speed improvement is pretty clear.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. I can't wait to start playing with it.
So I did something because we were talking, I immediately noticed how much faster this was just because of what I just showed you, right? We're iterating paths real quick. So I did this video here. I'm going to show it. We can pop up the presentation again. Watch. So on the left is EverPath. On the right is a classic unified toolpath doing the same thing, right? Just watch how much the screen jumps and changes on the right-hand screen. This is 10 times speed. I got windows popping up, coming up in my face while I do the same level of tasking here, right?
Yeah.
So I've got the same task load, and I've just got, you can see how much more focused I am on the left using EverPath to get to the same iterative design. And basically I was able to prove it out and get to a complete toolpath 5 minutes and 50 seconds. Right. And something that I'm happy with. Still working inside a unified, adjusting retract heights, whatever. I will say these toolpaths are not apples to apples. But both results in the end were very acceptable, and the same basic workflow was followed, right? I'm going through tool selection, cut pattern adjustments. I go through a couple different cut pattern adjustments, do multiple tool axis control iterations, do some linking iterations, and then finally go in and adjust my tolerance and adjust my step over. All that's happening in one instance of the toolpath, right? With EverPath. In Unified, every single change, I've got to come out or move the window out of the way and hit apply, let it generate, come back in. So anyway, we're looking at, and I did this across multiple faces, multiple features, multiple parts. I'm seeing anywhere from, around a 30% savings. In some instances, it's way more than that, right? The more complex the toolpath got, or the more intricate those iterations would be, the bigger the savings, right?
Sure.
Obvious there.
Sure. So there is a final question. We are just about out of time, everyone.
Yep.
So we're going to try to not run too much longer. So Sully asks, so is the new interface only coming to EverPath toolpaths?
Yeah, so this specific solution is the ribbon style. We've been starting to work through like some of the B-axis turning. Any of the new toolpaths have that panelized style toolpath. But yes, what you just saw is only coming to EverPath. And the old toolpaths are not going away. That basic product, that basic Mastercam product that's getting released every 6 months now is not going away, not getting modified. It is still getting worked on, still getting hardened, bugs, fixes, enhancements. That's all happening. In parallel, this separate development effort is happening with EverPath technology.
Sure. I could see Sully potentially, and I don't speak for Mastercam here. I don't have any special knowledge of the development pathways that they're going down, but I could see with what they're building in the new toolpaths that, and Mastercam has done this historically where something new is coming along. They're not going to take away what you're used to, but they're going to develop the new thing until it's better. And then eventually people just migrate to the new thing naturally because, hey, if I can do 90% of my work with EverPath and only 10% with the old stuff, it's going to be faster. Just, based on my just seeing it being demonstrated, it's like, oh, I can clearly see that way of developing a path is going to be, the way going forward. It's not going to replace the tools you've got. And there are still going to be paths, I'm sure, that are slated for development and a code refactor into the new interface, but that's not going to be like they're going to turn a switch and everything's going to be EverPath.
Nope, not happening. That's been a very conscious effort to keep the old legacy stuff. So before we finish up here, I did want to plug our webinar series at Mastercam. If I glossed over at 100 miles an hour what's new with Mastercam 2027. If you want a more in-depth overview of that, we're running a webinar on August 6th. You can see if you go to mastercam.com, or if you just Google Mastercam webinars, you'll find it, and you can go sign up. That one's public. Cam Instructor, we've got a partnership with Cam Instructor to teach some lessons with Mastercam. We've got that's really focused on our education customers, but we've got a webinar coming up there. Multi-axis tips and tricks. That is a connect only, so you have to have maintenance to get access to that webinar. And then finally, I'm going to be running a webinar with TDM showing how we work together for tool management purposes inside of Mastercam on August 26th. And I was going to move to question and answers. I think we've kind of, Erica actually chimed in with the link for our webinars. There you go, right on the screen there for you. So if you want to sign up for those. And Colin, you've kind of been hitting the Q&A as we've gone along here. So I don't know if we're in good shape as far as that goes.
I think so. There were some specific questions. I said, hey, just send me some files, get me some info. I'd be happy to help with those things. And a lot of that's like the functionality of the toolpath that they're trying to work on. So we can we'll be happy to follow up with the people that have asked for that have sent stuff in and asked for a follow-up. Otherwise, I think we're pretty good in a pretty good spot for wrapping up and signing off today. So looks like we had a pretty good, pretty active question session during it, and a lot of great questions about EverPath. And I think one of the things for everybody who's still on to be aware of, right, is EverPath. They're giving a preview of the new technology that's coming, right? It's not replacing what you've got today. It is kind of the future of what they're building out and just a technology preview. So we're getting a good look at it, and you still have the bread and butter toolpaths that are in the system today that you use to make parts, and the EverPath is new. We did have a comment there from Jared. Does EverPath have the option to reduce axis motion like unified common direction? And so my comment in the chat was really, if you've got specific examples of functionality, definitely get signed up to be in, a beta tester in the beta program, get access to try it out, and then get your feedback in. Because
my answer to that would be, it has the option like that, but it's going to be better. Right. And that's the comparison that we're working towards is beating in every way we can, in beating the older technology and making sure that we're not giving you something new just to be new. It's something better. Right.
That's a great answer. Great answer. All right. We are 5 minutes past the time. So we want to thank you for joining us today. It's been a great presentation, Jesse. So exciting to have you come and join us as a guest speaker in these series. And this is one of the first ones we've opened up to kind of everybody. So we do these Mastering Mastercam sessions for our government customers, but really excited to have you join us and do this awesome presentation.
Yeah, happy. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here, and I know I crammed a lot of information in there, so hopefully we weren't going too fast. But
well, we've got the recording that'll be coming out, and there were some questions about that. We will be sending a link to the recording to everybody. Give us it's probably going to take 24 hours, so don't start emailing us right this afternoon like, hey, where's the link? But we will get that out to everybody, so somebody's got that as an action item on our team, and as soon as it's out, we'll send everybody an email with the download link so that you can get access and review anything that maybe you just caught it, but there's a lot of, like Jesse said, there's a lot of info. So would love a chance for you guys to go back and review any of this. And then we're here for you. If you guys have problems, questions, whether you're a direct Mastercam customer or you're a Phillips Federal customer on the government side, we're here. Please reach out. And we thank you for joining us.